All right.
All right.
In action.
Okay. All right, we're from the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, which is not too far down the road from y'all. We do the crime scene unit. We have we have a bigger unit than Columbia County, but it's still kind of small considering what goes on in Richmond County. So here today, I have myself, Paige Belladino. I'm a crime scene tech, a civilian tech. We only have one officer that's certified police officer, and that's our sergeant, Sergeant Sean Newsom. I'm doing Sean Newsom. He is in school this week, doing latent print examiner tests, so it'll just be us today. I've been working for the Sheriff's Office for 17 years roughly. I've been doing crime scene for 6.5, and I've got some college, but I do not have a degree. I've got some science background, and so this particular job, crime scene is, boots on the ground. So you don't have to have a forensics degree to do this job, because a lot of our DNA and trace evidence and stuff like that goes to a lab, which is, where the other forensics type stuff is done. So when you get into the crime scene unit, they send you to school. You have to work within the unit to go to school for crime scene. And it takes about a year to get certified. And then once you do that, you're responsible for a lot. So this is Lauren Hill.
Hey y'all, I'm Lauren. I've been with Richmond County for 2 years. Prior to this, I worked for the GDI as a death investigator. I have a bachelor's in forensics from University of North Georgia, and I'm currently getting my master's in criminal justice online through University of Georgia.
Nice.
And this is Rachel Bernard.
Hi, I've been working here for about 5 months now. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology from Texas Tech University, and I also have a master's in forensic science,
Where'd you get your master's at?
also at Texas Tech.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And this is Michael Serta.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael. I too have been working at the Sheriff's Office for 5 months now. I got hired with Rachel, and I have an associate's degree in general studies, but I also have a bachelor's degree in forensic science and crime scene investigation. I got my degree at Hilbert College, which is in Buffalo, New York, and it's just been learning the ropes, and it's really great, very rewarding.
Now, Paige, where did you all park your truck?
The back there.
Oh, I got permission for you to park out front.
Well, that would have been
Yeah.
nice for us to know.
No.
Yeah.
I thought I said in the email you can park in front.
Oh,
You are the police. You can do anything you want.
For
Yeah,
Maxwell, I
yeah.
didn't know about this.
Yeah.
I was parked right there briefly to unload some
Yeah.
stuff, but they're in the back.
The
We
chief,
can pull them around.
Chief Lyons gave us permission, so
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Yeah, we all drive big trucks with all our equipment on it, and they're all in the back. We'll bring them around in a little bit. One of us will go bring a truck or two. You can bring yours, Michael. Okay. And park in a circle. So we're going to discuss
Right now.
We're going to discuss right this minute when you approach the crime scene what we encounter when we get. So we're like the last ones called to the crime scene. The first on the scene will be your EMS, fire, EMS, and deputies. And so they'll be first on scene. It's their responsibility to scope out what is considered the scene area, what they have, and calling in to investigators. Investigators will then come out to the scene, assess it, and decide, whether they need crime scene now, which basically entails what type of scene it is. We work all death cases. The only death cases we do not work are natural and sometimes accidental overdoses. Just depends. If there's any suspicion, we'll work it. We work some armed robberies and ag assaults, a lot of shootings, obviously. If there's a whole bunch of, bullet strikes, casings everywhere, then, they'll call us out to work. So it's actually the deputy that gets on scene who will secure our scene for us. And we always tell them, go bigger rather than smaller, because a lot of times you don't know where your last piece of evidence is going to be, especially when guns are involved. So, of course, this is real tiny in here. But if I had my choice, it would probably be way out there to the edge of the parking lot. That also helps keep media and onlookers, back, to give some privacy as to what's going on up here, especially if you have a body on scene. So deputies secure the scene. Sometimes they'll go ahead and look for evidence, put some little business cards down for us. But by the time we get there, there's already deputies, EMS, investigators, and supervisors already on the scene. So we meet with the lead investigator and get an idea of what we have, make sure that they've secured the scene large enough. We get the investigator and we do a walkthrough. So we walk through and we see what type of scene we have, whether it's a shooting, stabbing, a hanging, drugs, or whatever, and we look for evidence. We try to form a path that is not going to disturb like any footprints or tire impressions. That way when others come into the scene, we know exactly where everybody walks. After we do that, the coroner, if we have a body, we have to wait on the coroner because the body is the coroner's responsibility. So he'll come in, we'll walk him through the scene, he'll pronounce time of death. Once we've done that, he'll go back out of the scene, and then we will start doing our video and everything else. And I'm gonna let Lauren take it from there.
Alright, so when we do our initial walkthrough, we want to do some kind of search to kind of get an idea of what evidence we have. So the typical search that most people would do naturally is a point to point. So I see a gun, I walk a little further, I see a body. I walk a little further, I see a bag of drugs, stuff like that. But when you do that, you want to make sure that you don't miss anything. So it's always better to go back with a different kind of search method. So whether it be a grid search, you grid it off, have one person in each grid, and you walk up and down and make sure that you didn't miss anything. Line searches, everybody gets in a line, arms width apart, you walk down, come down, turn around like that. So once you get your initial search done, you kind of have an idea of what your evidence is. First thing we always do on a scene is video. So the video is used to be able to walk somebody through a scene. When we take our photos, the video complements it because in a photo, you may see that the gun's over here and the body's over here, but with a video, you can kind of get an idea of you walk over this way, the gun's right here. You turn a little bit to the right and the body's over here, that kind of thing. So the video is always a good thing to have just to complement your photos that you take. With the video, big thing on the video is always make sure you let people know you're taking the video. We will have deputies and officers, cutting up, trying to lighten the mood from what we're working, and that may not reflect well to the media if they were to get a hold of that video. When it gets played in court, you always want to make sure everybody knows that you're recording, so there's no talking in your video or anything like that. So it's just focusing on what you have that you're working with.
I forgot to tell you I'm recording.
I know.
I know, but I didn't tell you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So then we go back and we do photos. You want to start by getting overall photos. So if, say your scene is a house, you'll want to get a shot of the mailbox, then get a shot of the front of the house. Make sure you get all four sides of the house. So even if the back of the backyard has nothing to do with it, you always want to make sure you get a photo of it because that way you show the scene in its entirety. Once you get your overalls, you always want to make sure you stand parallel to what you're shooting. So say you walk into a living room. You want to stand in the center of one wall, shoot at the wall across from you. So you don't want to ever take a photo like this, where I'm taking a photo at an angle of where this gun is at. You want to stand parallel to your item so you make sure you get your photo in as a whole. Because if you shoot it from an angle, it kind of distorts the size or the value of the item basically. Once you get your overall photos of your whole scene, you then want to get your three types of photos. Your overall of a piece of evidence, your mid-range of a piece of evidence, and your close-up. Overall will just show the entire area. Mid-range will show your piece of evidence with something to reference to. So for instance, if we were shooting this gun, you'd want to make sure you got the corner of this building so you can see there's something to reference the distance between it. Close up, you want to always make sure you fill the frame with that piece of evidence. So what we would do here is we would do overalls of the entire area, and then we would get overalls of the scene itself. When you start doing the photos, you want to do overall, mid-range, and close-up of each piece of evidence. When you get your photos of each piece of evidence, always make sure you can see your evidence markers in it, which you put down once you do your walkthrough. You get an idea of what you have, you put down your evidence cones then. Once you get through with that, Once you photograph it, usually at that point, once we get our overall photographs of what we're working with, at that point we let the coroner come in, remove the body if it's necessary, then we can continue working and doing our job. So what we'll do is, say they get the body out, then we can start collecting our evidence, processing our evidence, that kind of thing. But it's always good, especially if you have an outdoor scene, to get the body removed as quickly as possible, so there's no conflict or media trying to get shots of the body and that kind of thing. So once we get our photos of everything, we always want to start processing. So different types of processing that we may do on a scene, fingerprinting, obviously. We have presumptive kits for blood and drugs and stuff like that. So we may want to get a sample of what appears to be blood. We have a presumptive kit. We can actually test it and see, okay, is this blood, is it not blood? If it is blood, we make sure we get a sample so we can send it to the GDI later on. We have the drug presumptive kits. Say you see a bag of what you think might be drugs. You can always get a little sample of that, test it. If it's drugs, then you know you need to collect it. If you know it's not, you can leave it alone. That way you don't collect too much evidence and bring in stuff that isn't pertinent to your case, but that way you also don't miss anything. So once you get your items marked, you pick up your blood, you pick up your fingerprints, then we can go actually start collecting the items itself. So you've gotten your photos of it, you can then remove it, package it using evidence bags, jars, gun boxes, anything that you need to transport that item. If it's something flammable, we put it in a paint can. So we have different types of packaging for that item, but your big thing is you want to make sure that you get it in the same condition that it is here back to the office. For instance, if we want to process this gun, we can't process this at a scene. We have to process it in cyanoacrylate fuming chamber, which is just super good. We have a chamber back at our office, so when you're transporting the gun from here to the office, you want to make sure that nobody touches it with their bare hands, always wearing gloves, and you want to make sure that you disturb the item as least as you can, because if you slide this gun into a bag and then it's jostling around in your truck or anything like that, the bag rubbing against the gun could destroy your fingerprints. So you always want to make sure you package it well enough to get it back to the office, but without messing with any volatile evidence that you may have. In terms of, short-lived evidence, if you have an outdoor scene, it's a day like today, you have something like blood or any kind of bodily fluids, anything that may not make it through the rain, that is always your first priority. So you always want to make sure, say you have a scene like this and there's blood and you need to get photographs of your blood and take swabs of your blood. You may have to work out of order. You may have to do the blood first so it doesn't get rained on. But if there's a chance that you really can't beat it, we have pop-up tents. We'll put a pop-up tent over the body and, try to preserve our evidence as good as we can. But there is always the case where you may have to work out of order. You have a blood trail and it's about to rain and there's no way to cover that entire blood trail. You want to work with that first before you work on everything else, because you want to make sure that you collect as much evidence as possible without it getting destroyed. What else?
Well, I just wanted to say, once you put your markers down, you can go ahead and collect the evidence as long as you leave your markers down. So that if the wind's blowing like it is today, you don't want your evidence to blow away. We have a casing over here, and I had to put it in one of the little grooves because they'll roll away because they're really light. We'll go ahead and do some measuring with our markers. We have different ways of measuring. What I always like to do is the easiest is the baseline. Get two fixed areas, and if you do not have, if you're in the woods or somewhere and you don't have a fixed area, then you can use a GPS coordinate. Just make sure you write it down. Obviously when it goes to pull it, you have to be able to reestablish that scene if need be. So get those coordinates. Like I said, I like doing baseline because it's just two measures. South, north, east, west, then come out to your evidence. There's also the triangulation, which needs 3 coordinates. And then we have the faro, which can't get wet, so that's kind of a condition with it, but it also takes a lot to set it up, and it takes a lot of time for it to run. So that can factor in, but I'm going to let Rachel tell y'all a little bit about the faro. Go ahead.
Can I ask one quick question? Because they are doing a crime scene project, and they're going to have to do long distance, which is orientation, relationship, which is midterm, and then close-ups.
Yeah.
So I have them do long distance, mid range, and close-up. Is that then do you do a 4-set with the ID markers? And I notice your ID marker has a scale in it, has a ruler on it.
Yeah, that's just to show the baseline measuring.
Right.
But yeah, we can use the marker if weather is an issue and we need to go ahead and get the evidence off the scene, then we can measure to our markers, our evidence markers, which
Now,
is also why the body has 2 markers for the feet and the head.
okay, that was the second question, where you have a body, how many measurements do you take? So you take it from the head and feet?
Right, from the head and the feet, and then in our notes we just give a very detailed description of how the body was, what positioning the body was. We also do an on-scene examination with the coroner to look for injuries. If the weather is an issue or if there's a crowd forming and we can't block it, we will go ahead and let the coroner take the body back to the morgue, and then we will go to the morgue after we finish the scene and examine it there, and take any extra photographs that we need there. Some of the things that you look for on the body is going to be whether there's rigor has set in, lividity, petechia in the eyes, any obvious physical injuries. A lot of times strangulation is hard to tell, but sometimes you will see some bruising or some scratching. The hands, and we've got some photographs towards the end of this if anybody wants to see a few photographs. There's a couple in there that's graphic. Nothing that's like that you can tell who these people are or anything like that. So it's an individual thing if y'all want to, but that's literally what you deal with. And when y'all go to court, if you're an attorney or whatever y'all decide to go into, all the photos of the bodies are always the main ones they like to put up on for the jury to see, and they're very graphic. So if anybody wants to see that, do you have any more questions?
Now, and for your project, you have to do 2 measurements on each piece of evidence, even though there are requirements on larger piece of evidence to have 2. Just for my project, just 2 measurements is sufficient for your crime scene sketch. Do you have to control the crime scene? Do you keep a log on people coming in?
The deputies, because they're on scene first, they'll keep the crime log, obviously for investigators and people who get there prior to when we get there. And then at the end, they will turn that over to the investigator. And then he'll have the log. And sometimes if we need it, we can go back and get it because they're just upstairs from us. And then they make a master note with everything in it. But, everything is accounted for. Weather, who is on the scene at the time, who has been in contact with the body or the evidence. Obviously, property receipts for chain of custody is very important for your scene. But the Pharaoh, like I said, it does all the measurements for you. So I'm going to let her kind of explain that and just get back on track with the measuring so we can move on.
Okay, so like they were saying, you're going to go ahead and collect your evidence, and then we will leave the markers on the ground and then start measuring from there. So obviously one of the most common ones is doing baseline. It's the most easiest and it's kind of more used. So triangulation and the baseline are used for more like smaller scenes. We use the Pharaoh when there's like a huge scene with a lot of evidence. And so basically what this thing does is you'll set up these targets and turn this thing on, and it'll shoot lasers out and then photograph and like 3D scan your scene. And you'll have to go back and you can place, it'll pick up like markers, and you can go in and place photos where your markers are. So it'll basically give you an interactive view of your scene. And so this thing will spin and take photos and shoot lasers and give you accurate measurements on where each of these pieces of evidence are. And then you can move this thing around to get a more like I said, a more better overall. So like, obviously I wouldn't start this thing here. I'd start it to where, like over here, it has to hit off 3 targets to be able to scan and move around. And so this one's used a lot for like outdoor scenes, big scenes with a lot of evidence.
So there's also, you can print out papers to put on a wall with tape as a target too for it. It gets a 380, so it gets the ceiling and everything. It has a setting where you can tell it how clear you want your scan to be, and of course, the more clarity you want, the longer it takes. And on an average, it takes 6 minutes.
Yeah, 6 minutes
per
scans.
scan for one area.
Yeah.
What she was talking about earlier, moving it around, is if you're in a house or like, you know, a mall or somewhere where you have like odd, you know, places, you have to move it so that you can get around those corners. So that when you get back, there's a laptop. It's like a gaming laptop, really. And you put the SD card in and then you stitch it together. And it basically makes a 3D, it looks just like a gaming video.
Yeah, if anybody plays video games, you can walk through the scene. That's basically what we're creating with the hair.
And when she was talking about, you can put a photo in, so once you stitch this together inside the computer, you can go to this cone and through the 3D app and actually get the physical photo you took of this, and you'll click on it and you can click the photo and it brings up so that you can see a close-up of what this is. So it's not just a, you know, overall. And you can do that for each photo. The good thing about this is I had a scene one time where it involved a basketball court, a parking lot, and then in between another 2 buildings. And we would have been out there for probably 12 hours trying to measure everything. So we actually used this. And it did take, I think, like 3 hours, but that's a lot better than, you know, 12.
At the time.
Yeah, physical.
If you had a system where you have a glitch and it fails and you have to go back out, or is it pretty reliable?
It's pretty reliable. Yeah.
The big issue that we have is occasionally if it's very bright outside and super sunny, some of the targets, say the sun's shining on the target may not show up. So you may have issues with kind of stitching it back together. That's really the only issue you have, is when sometimes the scenes will stitch themselves. All the scans will stitch themselves and you don't have to do anything to your scan.
Yeah.
Other times you actually have to physically go in, and if we scanned over here and then we scanned over here, you would mark this target from this scan and this target from that scan, and then it will recognize, okay, this is the same target, and put it all together for you.
You have to. I know that you don't want to get this wet, but if it snow, I guess snow and rain would really adversely affect the.
In
It would
that
not only.
case, we would not pull out the mirror.
Okay, so when it's that type of conditions, you can't bring it out.
Physically do the work, yeah. So after that, talking about collecting your evidence, and then after we do that, if he doesn't mind, y'all can kind of walk through the scene and look at stuff. But obviously, when you collect anything that's, you know, wet or DNA, especially, it needs to be in bags, not plastic. So obviously plastic will break down the DNA, and then by the time it goes, in some of these cases do not go to court for years. So by the time it goes to court and you go to get your evidence, and it could be, you know, ruined, and then you don't have what you need, and they have to throw it out of court.
Is that what happened to the Ray Lewis case in Atlanta?
Was it Ray Lewis? I know it happened.
The football player.
O.J. Simpson case.
Dojo.
Yeah. So, and just like, you know, with the guns and stuff like that, because it has a texture on it, you can't use powder because it'll just grab it and it won't show any detail. So we actually, and we can do this on scene if we have to, super glue. Use a humidifier and a heating plate, and you build like a little enclosed tent over it, and turn it on 20 minutes, the glue fumes, and it sticks to any moisture that's left behind on it. So even if it's textured, it'll still adhere to it. And when you get out, and we have a card over here that y'all get to look at that's white from the glue. And you can photograph it and use that if you need to, put it in APIS. You can use color liquid that'll, you know, make it illuminate if you need more detail. Which doesn't work too well with APIS system. But at this point, if y'all want to walk through and see what he's got, I'm passing the card. Oh, okay. She's going to pass the card around. It's on the card down here. I did a handprint on the black card, put it in the human chamber just to show y'all. And it is super glue, so it dries and it stays.
Put it in the blue bag, yeah.
It's really, really good. You just have to invert it before you can put it in the APIS. So, you want to let them walk through? Or?
Yeah, and what we'll do, we'll just just walk through, you know, kind of in a line behind it, and then I want you to just kind of look at the body and kind of look and, you know, kind of, you know, think what do you think happened just from your first look, and then just walk through. Don't touch anything, just observe. Keep your social distancing.
Ones that have already looked at the super glue print.
Yeah, you guys coming through.
Work our way
Just
around.
come through and do a big circle. And thank you all for maintaining social distancing. Those are the most students I had ever in class, except for a test. All right. Come on up here, guys. All right, so here we go. Yeah, come on. Y'all can come in. Y'all are investigators. Just keep 6 feet apart and just walk on through. Now, what was interesting, we've done this several years. This is the first time we did not have a student volunteer pretend to be the dead person, because that's extra credit. Miguel, you were going to get an A on that. I always have my favorite athlete do it. All right, so we got, that's me. That's a big dummy on the ground. All right, now y'all can just walk through, and then all these weapons are actually simulated. They're not real.
While y'all are walking through, I'm going to briefly touch on sketching, because I know that's part of what
Some
you
weed.
for your scene, for your assignment.
It's a Glock.
We don't do sketching anymore. Some agencies do. Our
Wow.
photographs on video is all that we really need, and especially if you use a Pharaoh, they kind of lays out everything for you. I do have a sketch
You're 15.
Sergeant Dixon did a while back for me on grease paper. So whenever we get a chance to let y'all come up here and see what equipment we have, you can look at that sketch and kind of see, I guess the most important thing, is all equipment is not to scale, and put your north, south, east, west on it. And your
Yeah.
furniture and all your stuff like that.
Oh, I just brought my stencil. I got one of those stencils.
Yeah.
that Sean had.
Yeah, you can get stencils that have like little bodies and guns on them where you can draw it into your sketch. It's really cool.
Do you have to prepare your crime scene sketches for court, or do you have a professional artist do it?
We don't do them.
Do you know anyone? I had a defense attorney ask me, and I was just a U.S. Marshal. I protected the judges and the U.S. attorneys, but I don't. Is there one in town that does crime scene sketches?
Not that I know of.
So
Yeah.
Columbia County and Richmond County are the only two agencies around here that have a crime scene unit, aside from Aiken County.
Right.
But in Georgia, Columbia County and Richmond County are the only two with an actual crime scene unit, and both of us have a Pharaoh, so we've kind of moved away from the sketching
Right.
and went more towards photographs, videos, and Pharaoh scans.
We did do a sketch for our fire scene though.
Yeah.
We had to give a representation of what the house looked like because it was burned down.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, we sketched.
Yeah. And so when they get to come up here, I do have a little sketch up here that they can look at on
Okay.
grid paper. But we're just gonna, like for fire cases, a lot of times because of the flammable fluids or whatever, it's gas that could be in the house for whatever reason. We always use a can or a jar for that before we ship it to the GBI. Also, if we, we can get T-trap from the sink or the P-trap. Yeah. Yeah. And we can put that in here. We've had to do that a couple of times. Seal it with your evidence tape and send it to the GBI. Did you actually process something for them on fingerprints, or?
I have not, no, I can't.
Okay. Also for y'all, because for court cases, chain of custody is really important. Really important to put the day of the incident, the agency case number, the time that it was collected and where it was collected from, what the charge is, whether it's evidence, safekeeping, recovered, or found, or for destruction. Sometimes with drugs we'll do for destruction. What your item number is and the quantity of it. And then a description of what you have. If you have a gun or anything that has a serial number, you can put it here because we can run that through GCIC. See if it comes back stolen or anything like that. And you have to do ATF traces on the guns to see where they originally were purchased from. Make sure that the person who collected the evidence has always signed it and then signed it over with the date and time they signed it over. And it goes on for each time it changes hands before it goes to court. We actually do this in the computer as well, but you can never not have your physical property receipt with handwritten signatures on it. Because the computer you can manipulate. You can go in there and change the time if it's wrong or something like that.
Another thing that we do processing wise, if you have a scene, say somebody was killed in a house and you think somebody cleaned it up, we have what is called Blue Star. So you've seen luminol on TV, they spray it and it glows. We do not use luminol very often. Luminol, it's more volatile. It flashes and then it goes away.
I think it degrades
It does. Yeah. So with Blue Star, it's the same concept. You black out the curtains and turn the lights off, and you spray it, and it will glow blue. So we actually have photos that we can pass around to show y'all what it looks like. Two on one side, two on the other. All right. So this is a mattress from a case, and you can actually see
when it's dark.
Yeah, one's when it's completely dark, and one's when there's
Can I
a
see
little bit
that
of
for the
light so you can
camera?
see what we're looking at. But it actually shows the outline of a bloody knife on the
Okay.
mattress.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, that's a knife.
Okay, right here, that's a knife.
Yes.
Okay.
That was where a knife was.
Got it.
The blood that was on the knife, that's what you see glowing, was the blood that was around the edges of the knife that was on the mattress.
And what do you call that called? Blue black?
Blue Star.
Blue Star.
So it's similar to like luminol that you see on CSI and stuff like that, but it is a more long-lasting chemical, and also if we use it, it doesn't degrade DNA. So if we spray something, we see possible blood, we can then swab that and send it to the GDI, and they can then test for DNA from it. If you use luminol, you spray it, then it could degrade the DNA, and when you send it to the GDI, they may say, well, there's nothing we can do with it. We don't have any more DNA in it. So that's why we choose to use Blue Star over using luminol. And as you can see in the pictures, the results are a lot better because we were actually able to set a camera up and get photographs of it before it fades away.
We also use alternate light on scenes to look for any bodily fluids. We do have a little handheld ALS up here. Just be very careful with it. It's very expensive, but you have goggles and it switches from the blues, different rays of blue actually is what it is. It'll show blood, semen, saliva, urine. So that's something we can use on scene when we're there, when we're not in the lab back at the office. Also, we have menhydrin. I tried to do a print on a piece of paper. It's a chemical that we can use. So say somebody mailed you a threatening letter and you don't know where it came from. This is something we use a lot on. They used to like to use iodine. They called it shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Yeah, shake and bake. So you would put the iodine capsule in there with your envelope, seal it, crack it, and shake it. But you know, iodine gets everywhere, and it can rust metal. It's just toxic. So menhydrin is a chemical that you can spray and saturate the piece of paper, but it needs heat to process. And it turns it like a purple color, and it gives you the detail of a print or anything that you need. And I tried to do one for you, but I think it's just too cool out here today. You can use a blow dryer or an iron to it in the office and heat it up if you needed to use that. We have magnetic fingerprint powder, and when it comes to fingerprint processing, it's all in what works best for you. Some people have a heavy hand, light hand, so there's all different types of powder for that, and lifting techniques. Also, we got shoe impressions up here, which is something that we use dental stone for now. It's quicker and I don't know, is it harder? Do you think it's harder than the?
It is.
Okay. So it's a little firmer than what we used to use. And we've got two different ones on the end that we've done to show when we do demonstrations and stuff like that. But it takes like an hour, 30 minutes.
15 to 20. So what we do is, say you have a shoe impression in a field, you want to get that shoe impression, but you don't really want to have to wait a long time to do it. You can actually, you put the dental stone down and then have a deputy park their car over the top. The heat from the underside of the vehicle will speed it up, and you can have it done in 5 or 10 minutes. Whereas when they used to use plaster of Paris, it could take days for it to actually harden. So this is a more firm substance to be able to take it but also it's a lot quicker of a process. The big thing when you do casting shoe impressions, when you pick up the cast, there may be dirt, there may be grass, different kinds of debris in there. You never want to wipe that away. You want to leave that in your dental stone, because when you send that to the GBI, not only can they compare it to a possible shoe that you have or a tire that you have, but also if there's vegetation in that that only comes from one area, they can use that as well. So,
you know, shoes have wear patterns for different people, and sometimes somebody might have stepped on something sharp that put a notch in that shoe in a certain place. So when you do shoe impressions, those are the things you want to look for, because we've seen 1 million Air Jordans. That's a very popular shoe. We've seen it all over, but so you look for the wear patterns on the shoe, or any kind of nick or something that makes that unique on the bottom of that shoe. GBI has never 100% said a match. They always say a percentage.
99.98%.
Yeah, and that's just, you know, what they do, because I guess at some point, if the person is still walking on that shoe before you get them, then there could be different wear patterns or something new on the bottom of that shoe. What is going around right now is a photo from a scene that I worked years ago at night. The ground was really hard. It was January, and it's using oblique lighting. So if you find a shoe impression on a scene, if you take your flashlight and you shine it from all different 4 angles, you take a picture from each angle. We usually set a tripod up over it. We'll set a light over here, and we'll get a picture from there on each side, and it shows the depth of the tread on the shoe. So if you can't do a casting, then you can do oblique photos, and you can send that to the GBI as well. When we do tire impressions, same thing, photographs, or we can use dental stone for that too if they're deep enough. And the way that we get tire impressions from the actual vehicle, the suspect vehicle, we have a bay that's really long. You put like 2.5 cars in there. It has fingerprint powder all over the floor in there. It's the concrete floor. We put Vaseline all over the tire. We section off the tire in quarters. We lay out poster board, taping it together, and somebody actually pushes the vehicle. It picks up the powder on the floor, and then when it rolls over, it leaves the impression of the tread, and we mark it each time it goes by for each section of that tire. We do it for all 4 tires, which I've done twice. Yeah. So, and it works. I mean, we've gotten, every time I've used it, it's been 100% successful. It's just a little tedious. So it takes more than one person, obviously, to do that. So, up here we have some projectiles, different calibers, just to show you what they look like. Striations on a projectile makes it unique to that gun. So if you ever come across a projectile and a gun and you think that they match, you can send them to the GBI. They have a firearms analysis up there, and it'll always make those same marks on that projectile when it shoots out of the barrel of the gun. Casings, same thing. The gun puts a pinstripe on the head of the casing. So when we collect casings, they have a NIBIN system, National
Integrated Ballistics Identification Network.
Yeah.
So what it does is it's actually like a fingerprint on a casing, and it can match casings from one scene to a scene 5 years down the road where the same gun was used.
So, and then if that gun, if it hits back, even if it hits back on another casing from another case, then you know that gun was used in multiple cases. Or if a gun is recovered, we always test fire if it's a criminal gun, and we put the test fires in the system, and they can match to a casing. And then we get a hit on it, we send it to the GBI, they confirm it. And this is why I was saying that the GBI does a lot of the real forensics on it. They have the equipment and the machines to do it that we don't. So we just do the basic presumptive test and the documentation of a scene. That's basically what crime scene does. We also do trajectory. We can do it in a house or a car, and blood spatter analysis. I could go on and on. I just don't want to go on too long. But if y'all want to, we've got the projectiles or the casings up here showing you the different weight, and you can take them out and look at them and see the striations on them, or the head stamps on them, the alternate light system, and our little camera. We got the hydrant, it didn't work.
What type of camera do you guys use?
Well, we have two. We have Nikon and we have a Canon, and we each prefer something different.
Okay.
So I like the Nikon.
Canon.
Canon, what's yours?
Nikon.
All right.
Canon, definitely. Canon.
Yeah, I like the Nikon can
All right.
focus at night.
I got-
If you don't have a lot of light,
Right.
it actually can focus better than the Canon. The Canon, you have to trick it to try to get it to focus at night.
Right, but
So
you,
each camera has a different purpose for it. Just overall, we have a different preference on what we want for just like a point and shoot. You know, hold the camera up, take the picture. We all have a different preference, but each camera actually has a different purpose.
is it as good as the iPhone 12 Pro in my hand?
It's totally
I mean,
better.
this is super high definition, high quality. Smile.
So whoever wants to look at pictures, Lauren has them in her hand.
So is there anybody who doesn't want to see crime scene photos? Okay. Now here's the follow-up. Is there anybody here who knows somebody who died in Richmond County in a violent death? Okay. Yeah. Okay. None of our photos are to the point where you can identify somebody based off them. There's no face shots or anything like that. It's more just wounds and kind of what we went into. I'll pass this
Let
one.
them come up.
Yeah.
And as they come up, show them. We need to keep track of these photos. We're letting y'all see. Normally these would be on a PowerPoint. So we need to make sure we get every single one of them back, obviously.
Yeah.
We got some digs in there where we do clandestine graves, where people were trying to dispose of somebody and bury them. Sometimes it's a year later before we find them. Sometimes it's within a matter of months. But the decomp of the body, depending on the weather and how deep, is really interesting. But so we have two different types in there. We also have a suicide in there.
Yes.
Several suicides. No, I think we have two suicides, I think.
Did you all get the big massacre that happened Saturday? You got any of those? The Florida Georgia game.
I don't want to talk about that. They're doing the massacre.
Wait.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
I'm still bitter.
We're not talking about the Clemson loss either.
If y'all just have any questions, I want to come up and talk.
But while you're doing it, can I get one volunteer to come up to the body and then kind of like process it if you were an investigator and then tell me what you think happened? Who wants to be a volunteer?
I guess I'll do it in 2 groups.
Yeah. All right, Miguel, come on. Miguel, you're my volunteer. We're filming this for the students that have can't be here today. All right. So, investigator Miguel.
Yes, sir.
You are in charge of your crime scene. All right, so you see an AR-15. Do you know the nomenclature of the M16A1 rifle? It's a 5.56 millimeter M16A1 rifle. It's lightweight, air-cooled, gas-operated, magazine-fed, shoulder-fired weapon. Sir! Yeah, I went to military school. It's still in my brain. All right, now, they're all looking at crime scene pictures. So you come up on this crime scene, you see a body, you see a gun. What do you see right here next to it?
Sir, these are his drugs.
All right, so there's drugs. There appears to be possible cocaine, possible marijuana.
These are his though, right?
We don't know. But I'm asking you, what do you see? You see a gun, you see a dead body, you see gloves,
I see a bag.
you see a bag. What do you think? What's your first impression you think happened?
First impression is, I think he was dealing drugs, selling drugs and stuff like that.
Right.
He probably got caught.
Okay.
And he went back and forth shooting with someone.
Yeah, so your first impression is it looks like a drug deal, something of a drug deal gone wrong because there's guns and there's drugs. Now, we're not going to have you search the mannequin, but you're allowed to go through the black bag. You did notice there's a black bag on it. You can search that. That's part of this drill here. And it might surprise you. Now, if you, there's a little race release here. Open that up and tell me what you see. You can there's another zipper there. Open the left zipper. Open the left zipper here. Yeah, there's 2 zippers. All right, then zip it all around. All right, what do you see?
Oh, some U.S. Marshal.
Okay, so does that change your impression?
A little bit.
What do you think now? Now it's opening up possibilities. What do you think could have happened?
Well, whose gun is that too?
We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know.
It could have been the shooter and he dropped it.
Yeah, it might be.
Now you can go, we obviously see a firearm, handcuffs, marshal badge. Go in the front pocket. Tell me what you see. Oh, there's money. And you would process, but there's thousands and thousands of dollars in there.
Okay, so right now I'm starting to think that somebody did got caught and killed a cop, but he got all the drugs and his money and probably like threw it next to him and put money in his bag. So when they found his body,
Well, there's a lot of things. It could be an undercover cop gone wrong. It could be someone planted him.
many things.
But all of a sudden you see there's some possible law. It could be like I said, an agent that was doing undercover work and got killed. But you don't know that because you are allowed, once you take out your photographs, you can go through the pockets. You're going to have to ID the person. You're one of the first persons in like 9 years to actually notice the bag and want to know what's in it, because you're amazing people. And that whole bag was the key of what happened. So congratulations, Inspector. You get an A+ for today. All right. That's a good job. Don't steal any of my money. Come over here and look at this stuff. All right. And this is evidence bags. You would put your blood samples in here because you want it to air dry. They use these for arson cases, he said. This is actually a box for handling firearms. This is the powder when they fingerprint. And this is the black powder they use. This is a good crime scene sketch. Now, you think I would, it looks like a little free-handed because the lines, use a ruler and make those straight lines because I went to architect school. This is where they keep bullets here, Miguel. So you have the bullet casings and you would put each one, there's some bullet shells.
Are those real?
These are real. Those are real bullets. That's a bullet. That looks like a 45. That looks like a 22 caliber in there. Different size. And a lot of times when they go into a body, they would mushroom out.
Yeah.
So this looks like a 40 cal. That looks like a 9mm. So you would actually, now you would obviously not put your fingers on it because you put fingerprints on it. But for us looking at it, there's the cameras. And this is the flashlight they use. I'm not sure what this is. It's probably it's infrared. They have different goggles, and you can use this to put on evidence to try to find evidence in fingerprints. Here, there are 2 cameras. They have a video camera, and then they have that's an icon. They don't do anything compared to the iPhone 12 Pro. There's some footprints, and they actually took some cast from dental stone there. And you see how, Miguel, you see how they have the scale? They put the scale next to the picture.
Oh yeah.
So
So they took that print out of the dirt.
yeah, they took that out of the ground, and they used a dental stone. Dental stone is actually what they use. Same one.
It's kind of like pancake mix. So you'll mix
Really?
it up and then pour it into the impression and then let it dry.
Speaking of pancakes, what is your favorite thing to put on top of pancakes?
Strawberries.
Chocolate and boysenberry.
Well, this is obvious. What if you were an elf? What would you put on a pancake?
If I was a what?
Elf.
Oh,
Syrup.
syrup.
Maple syrup.
Maple syrup.
You know why I asked that? There's a rumor I might be the elf at Augusta University, but I cannot deny or confirm.
Buddy the elf. What's your favorite color?
Kenny Buddy. Buddy's my brother.
Buddy's your brother.
He's my long lost twin brother. Would it be possible? Is there anything in your truck that they haven't seen up here that's worth looking at? Any? But you brought everything up here.
Oh, the mannequin. Do we have the baby mannequin? Baby duck mannequin?
I'm going to show you this. So this is they call it the Pharaoh system, but you can see it actually spins, and out the front here it shoots lasers, and they can hook this up to a computer, and it will spin around. After it takes, a couple minutes, it actually puts the entire crime scene perfectly in scale on a computer. And then you can look at aerial view, side view, and all that.
Okay.
And I'm not going to mess with it.
So like a video game, like a video game?
Yeah, you need like a really high-powered computer to download this. My 2013 Apple Mac Pro won't handle it. It'll need more memory.
Yeah, so there are 5
And we're
of us
gonna-
in this division, 2 are trained. I just had an injury, but normally we rotate. Somebody once a week is on call after hours, but you still work a regular 8-hour day. So at 5 o'clock, that person is on call until 8 o'clock the next day when we come into the office, and then there's a day call person. And that kind of shuffles. If you get a call, it goes to the next person and the next person. We also work road patrol cases, obviously, when they come out, process for print, or collect casings or projectiles or any other methods that they may need us to process. We do that on a daily basis. We're responsible for the NIBIN, the GBI run. We just got to go up there. We also get cars in, and that's very in depth in itself, processing a car for prints or searching it or any evidence like that. Everything that we do on a scene or in a house, you can do in a car. And you can do it anywhere. We need Blue Star, but for blood. If you cleaned it up, it's still going to show. Drugs, people come up with some very interesting ways of compartments and hiding drugs and guns and stuff like that in vehicles.
Hiding drugs in engine compartments.
Yeah.
So we really have to search every single bit of the car. Looking up underneath the hood, underneath the car, inside the gas cap. So we look at all these different areas because over time we've seen different creative ideas. So we have to explore all those avenues to see it.
Yeah. And when you do projectile strikes, you learn that there's a pinching.
It's starting to rain. Everyone come back inside. It's sprinkling.
When the projectile enters into the wall or the vehicle, whatever it's entering into, if it's not a straight on shot, it gives like a pinching, so it shows you what angle and direction that projectile was going in, and then we can follow that all the way through the car, where it went after that, and then where it terminated or where we need to recover it from. So you can tell if there's like a shootout in different directions. We can usually determine what angle and what happened. Say somebody was saying that they were defending themselves and they were shooting, but then the car passed them or whatever. There's strikes that are coming from a different direction. It may not be completely from the back, but it does show that they were still firing after the threat was done. Yeah, go ahead and put that up. Blood spatter shows directionality as well. It has a tail on it, and where the tail is showing you the direction that it came in. Also, the size of it shows you if it was a high velocity or it could be a drip, just like 90 degrees. So it's really interesting. Like, you can learn a lot based off of literally the physical evidence at your scene. It really tells a story. And the thing that I like about crime scene is when we go to court, I mean, everything that we're testifying to is actual fact. It's evidence.
Science.
It is. It's science. There's, it's backed up. Same with fingerprints. Nobody has the same 2 fingerprints. You actually have footprints. They haven't gotten those in the system yet. But they're just like your fingers. So it's not as easy as it looks like on TV. We actually physically do the work. There's no machine that you can put DNA in or fingerprints in and it just pop up, a picture with an address and say, here I am. You have to put in the work. And we work together with the investigators. They get the information from the people, we get the information from the evidence, and then we collaborate and we see what story's right and what story's not. We can go back out to scenes multiple times if we have to. So, any other questions?
Before we wrap it up, did everyone sign in? I have a sign-in sheet. If you haven't signed in, it's in the blue bag right here. Other thing, when you do your mock crime scene demonstration, I'll have the box open tomorrow, and it'll be due December 8th. So you'll have between now, you have a month to turn it in. There are instructions on there. I'll even load this video up. This is great, but you all are here. You don't have to watch it again. You don't have to have these professional crime evidence markers, what I do is I take an index card and I fold it in half and I'll write A, B, C, and I'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have to put a scale down next to it. Make sure your camera picks it up. I will deduct points if I look at your picture and it's blurry. Make sure the lighting's right. Do not, there's so much, I apologize for all the race cars going on. Please, 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 do not use real guns. No, you got to use toy guns. I have some toy guns I got at Toys R Us. Do not use real drugs. That is flour and oregano over there. And I have to give them back to my wife. So when you do your crime scene, you know, you can do it 2 ways. I had a group wanted to do a group project. The max I'll do in the group is 3. And that means one person does, everyone has to be there to set up the crime scene. And you'll do a selfie at 6 feet apart. So I know you all 3 are there. Someone do the PowerPoint. One person do the 2 evidence logs and photo log, and someone do the crime scene sketch. But you got to coordinate that sketch with the photos to make sure they match, because that's what I grade on. If you miss something, you don't have the measurements right, what do they do in a court of law? Doesn't a defense attorney want to throw stuff out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You don't put down evidence and put down today's date and you put a line. You got to put down the date every time, because they are looking to throw things out.
Date, time, what you did, yeah.
So
A big thing about this job that I make sure I hammer home to people, this job is not glamorous. There is nothing glamorous about this job. My first week on the job, they put me in a dumpster to look for a gun. So I climbed inside a dumpster my first week here to look for a gun in all the trash and
Did you at
rotten
least find
food.
it?
No.
There's a lot
No.
of times we don't. We've been out to the landfill multiple times.
We go out to the
today.
landfill to search for evidence all the time. There is nothing glamorous about this job.
you could be a marshal.
Yes, ma'am.
Podcast.
You like keep the person there, like they're still alive and likely, and not bury her? Do you keep them there and take a picture of them? Maybe?
For what now?
Like if there's yeah. If
No,
there's
so we don't, if the victim's alive or if there's a chance for the victim to live, we get them out. They're usually gone well before we even get to the scene. We can work with what we have without the victim being there. So we don't want to keep a victim there just to hope that we can get
No.
a photograph of it. We want them out. And
Preservation of life is the first priority of the
so
law
if we
enforcement.
get to the scene and there's EMS trash everywhere, we accept it because they were working to save that life. So that kind of thing, we just we document it, but we overlook it because the preservation of life is the biggest part of it.
With that being said,
like if they only get like a
Oh.
paper cut or something, like something a little bit bigger than that, do they like something the size of a paper cut maybe?
In situations like that, we won't be called. So we get called to aggravated assaults where there's a bunch of shell casings everywhere and a bunch of projectile strikes and maybe a couple people were hit. Murders, suicides, bank robberies. Those are the kinds of things that we get called to. But if there's a victim that needs medical treatment, they go. We don't have to worry about waiting on us to get there for them to get the treatment.
Oh, yeah. They're gone first.
yeah.
A lot of our investigators handle some things for us. If it's just a shooting, say they have 2 shell casings and a car was struck once, the investigators will handle that because they know that we're overloaded with not only the scenes that we go to, but the evidence that we get at the office that's turned in that we then have to process and write reports on. So if they're calling us out to something, it's something that cannot be handled by just an investigator.
Also, he has my email address. If anybody wants, information about anything, feel free to email me. He has my desk number, and we don't mind. We also do an internship at the sheriff's office
Yes.
as well. But he can normally, like I said, we're not outside, so I feel like I don't have anything to write down. She might have a business card.
We'll just send it to me and I'll put it on our online page.
So we'll be glad to answer any questions or try to help you out.
All right. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up this video. I appreciate. First of all, we cannot thank you all enough, especially in these trying times. That I didn't expect this super awesome team. This is amazing. Thank you. And we had a plan for the rain, and I learned so much. I read books on it, but this was amazing. This is real life stuff. So God bless you all. You all, because the most unreliable evidence in a court of law is what? Eyewitness testimony. But yeah, guess what is the most reliable? Forensic science, because science tells the truth. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you, Richmond County Crime Scene. You're amazing. It's about to rain. Y'all get out of here. Ask some questions after the class. I'm calling the video now. I'm gonna go look at this truck and then call it a day. Let's go look at the crime scene truck. Now they have 3 crime scene trucks, and I'll zoom in on this one. This is actually one of the pickup trucks, and they have a truck that's huge, but it's actually at the training academy now. Let me back this up a little bit. And I cannot thank the people at Augusta University and Kelly at the Maxwell Center for letting us sit up under the portico. And this is what the crime scene truck looks like. Pretty cool. Got all the blue lights and everything. So we're set up right here for the back. And what'd you all think? Was that all right? Would you? Was that worth the whole class? Yes. All right. I'm gonna post a video on YouTube and I'll put it up on D2L. And this is the best demonstration we've ever had. So, and I appreciate y'all coming out, and let's get out of here before it rains. And the cool thing is we were able to go underneath right there, and it's a giant portico that kept us out of the rain. And it's actually just drizzling right now. All right, so thank you all for coming. Enjoy this video and sign up for criminal investigations for Professor Sugars next semester. Take care.